Hey, everybody. On this episode of the Smoke and Barrel Show, we're going to be talking about figurado cigars and what you need to know. Hey, everybody. So I'm here with Kyle from Route 7 Cigars, and we're going to be talking about figurado cigars and what you need to know. And Kyle, I've smoked a lot of figurado cigars. There's actually a lot of different sensation. You get a lot of different tastes. I want to talk a lot about that. But let's first start off with what most people are smoking. I'm smoking the 601 Oscuro here today. And your Toros, your Gordos, and your Robustos, they're typically a Parejo, right? And Parejo means it's the same width all the way down. It's the same size all the way down.
Correct. Yeah, it's the same ring gauge, foot to head.
Yep. And so that's typically what most of us are smoking. But you see a lot of different shaped cigars, and they all kind of fall into that figurado category.
Right,
so tell
which
us
means figured in Spanish. So,
So tell us a little bit about sort of where that figurado comes from, how they're making these, and let's just
Okay, so, you know, they're really all handmade because they're not even all the way down. So you have to do a lot more hand shaping to make them that. That's why they're called figured or a figurado.
Right.
The most popular one, which you were talking about earlier, happens to be the torpedo.
Yes.
This is the most popular figurado made out there.
Yeah.
People specifically come in and ask for torpedoes. That's where the ring gauge is big here. It stays all the way the same until almost the end, and then it narrows down into a point.
Yeah.
That's a torpedo. Looks like you would shoot it out of a submarine.
Yeah, and so
that's the idea.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things about the torpedo, if you haven't had that experience yet, is based on how the end of it is shaped, you can cut it at different levels, right, down into the torpedo shape. You can cut it at different levels, and you're actually going to get a little bit of a different sensation.
Yes, that, and it isn't going to unravel like a Parejo if you cut it too deep, because it's been shaped that way.
Right.
So the whole wrapper is tied to the cigar, not just the cap.
But if you just cut a little bit off the cap, you're going to find it's kind of got a hard draw. You've got all that smoke and all that flavor coming down into a smaller point. And I've actually had a couple of situations where I've actually cut it a little bit too short. I've kind of gone in and cut it a little deep.
Cut a little more, and you open it up a little. A lot. Sometimes, though, you trim a very little off, and it still draws really good, right?
Yes,
just
absolutely.
Depends on the cigar.
Just try. Yeah, I usually start short, and then we'll go deeper.
But because the cigar is thick here and comes to a point, you're getting intense flavor because you're taking big amount of smoke into a smaller hole.
Yeah. I'll actually get a different sensation from torpedo, even within the same
and I like
brand.
them because I like a smaller cigar in my mouth, but I'm still getting a big cigar flavor, right? It still fits in my mouth.
So that's a really popular figurado.
Right.
Tell us about some of the other examples we have here.
So this is Arturo Fuentes Hemingway. This is considered a perfecto, where it slopes down on both sides evenly.
Yeah.
This is really, really good. The idea is you like this little end, and it seems kind of tight, and the flavor doesn't seem right. But the minute it hits this, it opens up. And you get that sensation, and all of a sudden you go, "Whoa, man, this is a really good cigar."
and this Oliva V here has got a similar shape.
Right, and so does the El Septimo.
Yeah.
The size doesn't matter, length or whatever. It's the shape of the two ends that specify what kind of figurado cigar it is. This is called a perfecto.
One of the things that's interesting, though, about sort of the smaller cigar, right? So if you kind of take just the Oliva V here and you take the Hemingway, you can see the Hemingway is a much smaller cigar. So that point is going to be really small. The first time I had this, I actually had a little bit of a challenge getting that small end to light correctly. And it kind of burned up the side of the cigar. Right. And you had a recommendation of how to fix that. So,
So you just trim a little of it off. You don't have to trim it all the way down to it, making it a Parejo.
Right.
You just trim it so you have more space to get your lighter onto, to evenly get it to burn.
Right.
So yeah, you can do it either way. A lot of people like the idea of that point and the opening it causes when it hits that space.
Yeah.
Where if you trim it off, you're getting less of that sensation.
Yeah.
Because you're using more space already.
Yeah, it definitely changes it a little bit for sure.
Right.
So, and then tell us about sort of the shorter version, which seems to be the same style, but it's a lot shorter, much fatter.
Well, this is if you don't have a lot of time to smoke. These are both the same thing. This one's just way fatter. Again, you're taking a little end, and once you hit this big spot,
Right.
this thing really, really opens up. But this is basically made for people that really kind of want a Robusto, but want a torpedo kind of reaction.
Yeah.
In that, you know, you're taking big smoke into a smaller hole or whatever, but you don't have the time to smoke that, then you're smoking this.
Yeah.
There's also the chisel, which
Yes.
we talked about. This was made by Lito Gomez from La Flor Dominicana. He's the only one that makes a chisel. I think it was done as a hook to get you to buy it. It looks like a chisel that you would work with a hammer and a chisel in carpentry or whatever. That's what it's shaped like. I think the benefit is, one, you're getting more space across, right? So it's not as pronounced thin or narrow as a torpedo. So you're getting almost a Parejo style, but it's narrower in your mouth or smaller in your mouth.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of this.
I
just don't like the way it fit in my mouth, but
Yeah.
a lot of people like it.
I actually like the chisel, especially in the LFD, because that's kind of that LFD in particular, it's a stronger cigar.
Right.
And with that smaller space, it's actually a little bit more intense, right? And so I like that bolder cigar.
So there's a couple shapes I don't have any examples of. One being a pyramid.
Yeah.
A pyramid starts out fat and then slims down all the way through the cigar. A torpedo, as you notice, is really a Parejo till it hits here, and then it thins out into what looks like a torpedo.
But the pyramid
starts big, and then from foot all the way to the head, slims down until it hits the smallest point. It looks like a pyramid, in Egypt. That was the idea.
There's actually another version or another figurado where it's actually 3 cigars wrapped in one, and some of you have probably seen this thing online. And I've actually seen some people that try to smoke the whole thing all together.
Right.
And that you're actually supposed to take it apart.
Correct. Okay, so the history of a culebra was that is the cigar that the workers got in Cuba. When they came in the morning, they handed them culebras. So they took apart the cigars, and they were crooked like that. So they knew they weren't smoking what they're rolling on the table. But people started seeing people smoking that, and they got interested. And all of a sudden, they wanted to buy it. So they started to make it. Yes, people have tried to smoke all 3, but you trim that thing, and once it gets lit and you hit a point, you got 3 fires going 3 different ways. Yeah, you're going to end up with a lap full of tobacco. Yeah, you take them apart and you smoke one by one.
Are there any other figurado shapes that folks might see out there?
Well, there are a lot. I mean, they make baseball bats. If you can think of it, they've made a cigar out of it. There's a lot of companies sell a baseball bat, and mentioning that Drew Estate.
So we've got a little bit of a novelty here, but a lot of you have heard of or seen Drew Estate's egg.
This is the egg, which is considered technically a perfecto because it's narrow on both ends like that. But it really, they call it an egg. I don't know. I would call it looking like a rat being ate by a snake because that's what it looks like. But yeah, it's a novelty item. I mean, you can smoke it. It's made to smoke.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, they've come up with all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can see Solomon's, which I should have brought an example out. We have one in the store. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
A Solomon is a really large cigar, close to kind of like this, but much more torpedo-like in its shape.
Yeah.
And that's done like an 8-9 inch cigar.
Okay.
It's just another example of what they can do if they want to shape anything into a cigar.
But in general, so as you kind of experiment and try different things and try different cigars, and you see these figurado shapes, some key things to be aware of. Number one, obviously, you're going to want to cut it. It may cut a little bit different.
Right.
The intensity is going to maybe different depending on how much air you have.
So you experiment, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the whole idea about all of this anyway. It's really hard to V-cut a torpedo, though you can. And I know people that do. But because of its shape already, you have a good chance of damaging it by trying to cut it.
Yeah, I've not tried to V-cut
and
that.
I have customers that do it, but it better be really sharp. and make a really clean cut. Otherwise, you've got 2 points and they have a chance of falling apart.
Yeah, and then
So-
obviously the other tip is for some of those that have that smaller end, it's not a bad idea to snip it off a little bit. If you have trouble lighting it, give it a try first
right,
time.
yeah, you know,
and see. But if you do, you can trim the end of it.
The more you end up smoking them, the less you're going to have to do about trimming it off. You get the idea.
Yeah.
You learn how fast to puff on it or whatever to keep it going the way
Yeah.
it's supposed to.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. That's a little bit about some of the figurado shaped cigars, what you can expect. So we hope you got a little something out of that. As always, don't forget to click like and subscribe. And we also love to hear your comments down below. And we'll see you next time on the Smoking Barrel Show.